Hello everyone, my name is Maria Vyushkova, and first of all I would like to say a big thank you to Tatiana Linkhoeva for organizing this amazing and unique event, which was very eye-opening, very enlightening to myself, and also for generously allowing me to give this unofficial presentation today. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about Buryats and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and about the Russian side casualty statistics, including ethnic statistics, and about the Buryats in Bucha myth, about the common misconception that ethnic Buryats were responsible for the massacre in the Ukrainian city of Bucha. So first of all, I will just tell you a little about myself. I am an ethnic Buryat activist, and I am also a PhD computational scientist with the University of Notre Dame, Indiana. And I was a co-founder of the Free Buryatia Foundation, the first ethnic anti-war organization created by the Russian citizens in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. So, I just need to make a short correction. So actually, I'm not a member of Free Buryatia Foundation right now because actually I left this organization in April 2023. I just wanted to focus more on my research work. So, but nevertheless, during my time in the Free Buryatia Foundation, we published a paper for which I'm extremely grateful to Christina for being an editor and to Dr. Ayur Zhanaev for organizing this series of papers, Voices of Ethnic Minorities, in the Inner Asia Journal. So our paper with data scientist Evgeny Shirkhonov from the UK is dedicated to the ethnic statistics of Russia's ethnic minority casualties of the 2022-23 Russian invasion of Ukraine. So we analyzed the ethnic composition of the confirmed Russian side casualties of this war, of this specific invasion of 2022-23. So if you are interested, I can send you a link to our paper. So to the best of my knowledge, this is the only paper on this topic which has been published in an academic publication. It's not exactly a classic peer-reviewed paper, but nevertheless, it's some source on this topic. So, first of all, I want to tell you how actually we counted these ethnic statistics. So there is a group of volunteers, and for the reasons of safety, I cannot disclose their identity because they live and work in Russia, and they collect the obituaries published on the social networks, so social media mining, and in the local media, and also in the official reports of the typically local authorities, but also a federal Russian TV sometimes. So they collect the obituaries or all the messages from the relatives of the deceased or from the authorities confirming the death of this specific soldier in the war in Ukraine. So, and they have created a huge database, and right now they have more than 33,000 obituaries in their database. And I am actually part of that volunteer community. I collaborate with them, and they publish their report in the Media Zona, in the famous Media Zona, Russian media outlet, and also they collaborate with BBC News Russian. So they publish their reports, as far as I know, every 2 weeks. And I used this database, and so did the British researcher Alexander Besudnov in his work. So we both use the same source, the same database. We have slightly different approaches, but nevertheless, we also collaborated with ethnic activists from Kalmykia, from Tuva, from Sakha, Yakutia, from Chechnya, in order to determine the ethnicity of each casualty, of each obituary. Because ethnicity is a question of self-identification, but we cannot ask that person because that person is dead. So the next best thing is to talk to people from a corresponding ethnic community and to ask them if they recognize this person as part of their ethnicity. And I also contacted the members of indigenous small number peoples of the north, like Chukchi, Ulchi, Nanai people, Also I found some publications by Evenk community from Sakha, Yakutia, and I found out that Asian minorities are overrepresented, grossly overrepresented among the war casualties. And second, the a small number of indigenous peoples of the North and Far East are also overrepresented. And as you can see in this slide, on the left-hand side, you can see the ethnic composition as of September 2022, right before the mobilization. The ethnic composition of the confirmed Russian side casualties or the obituaries. And you can see that Russians make up only 70%, though they make up more than 80% of the Russia's population. On the right-hand side is you can see the Russia's population by ethnicity, right? And such groups as Kazakhs, Buryats, and Tuvans are grossly overrepresented, right? Because, for instance, Buryats make up only 0.34% of the Russia's population, but in September 2022, they made up 2.3% of the confirmed casualties of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. However, it has been noticed right away by many sources, many journalists and the researchers that ethnic minorities such as Buryats are overrepresented among the casualties and also among the soldiers of the invasion army. And there was very weird explanation given by a number of speakers, like Buryats being specifically warlike, military-minded, or even bloodthirsty, and like willingly participating in this war in Ukraine because they just, for some reason, they want to fight with Ukraine, or they want to kill Ukrainians, or some very weird explanations were offered. But in reality, if you look at how these statistics changed with time, you can see that between March 2022, the first month of the invasion, and September 2023, the percentage of ethnic Buryats among the confirmed Russian side casualties has decreased. So it's like more than 3 times, from 3.3% to 0.9%, even despite the disproportional draft of the residents of Buryatia under Putin's partial mobilization order. So even with this disproportional mobilization of the residents of Buryatia, including ethnic Buryats, the percentage of ethnic Buryat is still decreasing. And it has decreased more than 3 times. So I mean, if the participation of Russian citizens in general would decrease more than 3 times, the war would have ended, actually. That just shows that those explanation of Buryats just wanting to fight with Ukraine is just not true. They are not enthusiastic at all about participating in this war. So, these diagrams, they show how the number of ethnic Buryat casualties changed during the first several weeks, like 140 days of the war. And it was just a rapid decrease. And the highest number of casualties was during the first 20 days. So this actually corresponds with the invasion of the Kyiv region, and where the 5th Tank Brigade was involved. So the 5th Tank Brigade from Ulan-Ude has the highest percentage of ethnic Buryats in all Russian army. It's just incredibly high. It's 40%. They are still a minority, but it's 40%. It's higher than in Buryatia itself. And this tank unit specifically was deployed to the Kyiv region, and their task, their mission was actually to cut off the city of Kyiv from the rest of Ukraine, from the southwest. And this was just a suicide mission. It was obviously impossible, and they all died there, basically. There were a huge amount of ethnic Buryat casualties precisely for this reason. So actually, the real cause of such anomalously high rate of Buryat casualties in the beginning of the war was actually the deployment policies, which I argue are discriminational deployment policies of the Russian army, because apparently the tank unit from Ulan-Ude was considered like more expendable than others. right? Because they didn't send like Tamanskaya Divizia or Kantemirovskaya, they sent actually a tank unit from Ulan-Ude, where 40% of Buryats. And basically, to a very significant extent, this anomalously high number of Buryat casualties is actually explained by this fact that it was just 5th Tank Brigade during the invasion of the Kyiv region. So, and there is a very popular misconception, especially unfortunately in the Ukrainian media, where they think, the journalists, I mean, often think that Russian invasion army consists almost exclusively of ethnic minorities, or even that Buryats are a majority there. So the journalists I talk to often express this point of view, which is not correct at all, because the overwhelming majority are still Russians. And by this time, by the fall 2023, the balance has changed from east to the west. The geography of the casualties has changed, shifted westward towards Euro, towards Volga region, and Russia's south. So, and right now it's mostly ethnic Russians. The balance changed towards ethnic Russians even more, just because the mobilization potential in Buryatia or regions of the Far East is depleted already. The contract soldiers of Buryat ethnicity who were present in the army at the beginning of the invasion, they were, many of them were killed or wounded, or they just became the so-called откaznik, right? So they refused to continue their military service. And because of that, the military authorities tried to recruit more people from Buryatia, but they failed. They failed miserably because they failed to replenish, right, the percentage, basically the percentage of Buryats in the Russian invasion force. This is very obvious from the casualty statistics and how it changed with time, from 3.3% to 0.9%. So, and this diagram just shows the correlation between model income in a region and the number of casualties, the war casualties of the 2022 invasion. But it shows that there is some degree of correlation, but in reality, the most important factor is not the economy, it's not poverty, it's just the amount of military units per capita in the region. For such regions, for instance, as Kurgan region, it's a very poor region, it's way poorer than Buryatia is, yet there are very few casualties there, just because there are no military units there. Or if you look at Sakhalin, for instance, it's a very wealthy region because there is oil, they drill for oil there, right? It's oil-producing region, yet there are a lot of casualties there because there are military bases, right? Because it's a border region, of course, and Japan and Russia have been fighting over Sakhalin for many years. And that's the reason why there are so many military units and so many people serving there. And this is the only reason, actually. So the most important reasons are not specific, military mindedness of Buryats or their bloodthirst. No, it's not their poverty even. No, the most important reason is just the amount of military units in region and the deployment policies, actually. So it's a way more complex phenomenon than it is perceived, in the media and in the public opinion. Yes. So during the partial mobilization, Buryatia was hit disproportionately hard. So according to the data collected by Mediazona, Conflict Intelligence Team, and Free Buryatia Foundation, residents of Buryatia were drafted 2.5 to 3 times more often than residents of other regions of Russia on the average, right? The average Russian level. And the death rate among the mobilized residents of Buryatia, at least the confirmed death rate, is even higher, because 1 out of 18 confirmed dead mobilized soldiers was from Buryatia, right? 1 out of 18. Though only one out of 149 men of working age lives in Buryatia. So it's like 7 times higher probability. And I have some evidence that the civilians mobilized from Buryatia, they were just sent to the front lines, to the most dangerous places, they were sent there first before any other mobilized soldiers or people from other regions, because actually conscripts from Buryatia started dying in this war on October the 4th, 2022. It was 12 days after. 12 days after the partial mobilization was announced, we already had the first confirmed war-related death from Buryatia. There were actually 2 deaths, at least. And their relatives told the Radio Free Europe, they told the journalist that there were actually 9 people who died, because there were 9 people in one car which exploded on a landmine, hit a landmine and exploded. And 9 people died, but we have obituaries for 2 of them only. We don't know the region of origin of the rest of the casualties. But nevertheless, it's just obvious that it is discriminational deployment policies again. Discriminational mobilization and discriminational deployment policies. But the percentage of ethnic Buryats in general among the Russian side casualties is still decreasing. So apparently Buryats are not so willing to participate in this war. And that's why the government used such barbaric methods during the partial mobilization in Buryatia, where people were literally pulled out of their beds at 4 o'clock in the morning with the police and things like that. So in reality, such measures were used just because people are not so interested in participating in this war. And also the average age of the mobilized civilian who died from Buryatia was closer to 40 years. Though the government clearly wanted younger people, younger and healthier soldiers, obviously. But young people, apparently, they are just, they have higher mobility, it's easier for them to hide. Apparently that was the reason. So, and that shows just people try to avoid it at all costs. That was a very typical behavior. Very few people were eager to participate in this war in Buryatia. And finally, just a couple of remarks about the Bucha massacre. So in early April 2022, after Russian occupation forces left the city of Bucha in the Kiev region, the evidence of horrific massacre of Ukrainian civilians by the Russian troops was uncovered. More than 400 civilians were killed. And unfortunately, the Bucha massacre was immediately blamed on the ethnic Buryats by both Ukrainian sources and a number of prominent Russian speakers as well, unfortunately. And no one, with the exception of the conflict intelligence team, to whom I have great respect for that, no one but them noticed that the story just did not add up. Because, first of all, there are no mono-ethnic Buryat military units, and because Buryats are a minority everywhere. Anywhere that they live or serve in the military, they are a minority. And even within a tank crew, there are 3 people in the tank crew. There will be 1 Buryat and 2 Russians. That's a typical composition of the tank crew. So there are no mono-ethnic teams there, and this is actually a deliberate policy of the Soviet military authorities and then Russians, just because they were afraid of people rebelling on the ethnic grounds or ethnic conflicts among the groups of soldiers. So they tried to mix them up as much as possible. So there are no mono-ethnic Buryat military units. And the cleansing, or zachystka in Russia, operation in Bucha was conducted by the Air Assault Regiment from Pskov region, not by the Tank Brigade from Buryatia, and neither by the 64th Motor Rifle Brigade from Khabarovsk. Actually, it was confirmed by the POW testimony in Ukrainian sources, so captured Russian soldiers told them, who were from this Pskov regiment, they explicitly told them, we did the zachystka in Bucha. And also in the obituaries, I looked at the obituaries, it was obvious even in early April 2022, because the people who had the place of death indicated as Bucha, Kiev region, they were almost exclusively paratroopers from Pskov. So, and after that, everything was just obvious. And they kept dying there during the whole occupation, until the end of March 2022. So they were staying there during the whole month of March 2022. But unfortunately, the myth of Buryats being responsible for the massacre, Bucha massacre, was, very popular. It became very popular, and it was really hard to counteract it. And in reality, the people in the infamous Buryats in Bucha picture are not Buryats, not in Bucha, and not in 2022. So they are Sakha or Yakut soldiers. The picture was taken in Khabarovsk in Russia at their military base location. And it was taken in 2020, actually. And moreover, they were conscripts, they are not contract soldiers. So most of them actually served for 1 year and went home and never participated in the invasion of Ukraine. So, but this image just became like widespread, it became viral actually in social networks, and everyone believes that this is the image of Buryats who killed civilians in Bucha, which is just not true, and this misinformation was unfortunately spread by a Ukrainian media outlet called Obozrevatelь, and the author is Lilia Ragutskaya. I don't know why she did this, unfortunately. But I think people were just so hurt by the Bucha massacre and they wanted justice so badly that some journalists just decided to provide some sensational content and just to satisfy these people demanding justice, right? And also it was much easier to blame someone who is of a different race, different ethnicity, looks different from you. I think that was the reason. But eventually, the investigation by the New York Times made it clear that it was indeed the air assault regiment from Pskov who were responsible. And there was just one person with a Buryat name who, according to the authors of this investigation, served in that regiment and made a phone call using a phone stolen from an executed Ukrainian civilian. But based on the data I have collected, it is extremely rare for a Buryat person to be drafted to this regiment, due to both the geography, because of huge distance, because 90% of conscripts actually stay within Buryatia, military bases in Buryatia. And second, just because military specialization, because, typically Russian Buryats, ethnic Buryats are not as tall as Russians are, and because of that there is like height requirement, high stage requirement for the air assault forces. And for a tank military units, it's the opposite. It's preferable to be shorter, actually. And that's why so many Buryats, even within Ulan-Ude, there is an air assault brigade, tank brigade within Ulan-Ude. But the ethnic composition is like this. Because Buryats go to tank brigade and Russians mostly to the air assault brigade. It's obvious. So, and apparently this person was the only ethnic Buryat involved in the Bucha massacre. So apparently the whole nation was blamed based on one person. There was just one Buryat and probably hundreds of Russians, but nevertheless Buryats are to blame. And there is no evidence so far of disproportionately high involvement of ethnic Buryats in war crimes, which is very obvious. The reason is very obvious because Buryats are mostly soldiers. They are plain soldiers. And there are very few of them among high officers, high top-ranking officers. So they are just do whatever they are told to do, basically. And I think this Bucha massacre, it has been concluded in the official investigation, New York Times investigation, that there was organized violence, organized by the military leadership, and there are no Buryats there, basically. So, and unfortunately, such prominent and influential figures as Pope Francis still believe that Russians are to blame because the worst atrocities were committed by Buryats and Chechens. Notably, in his infamous interview, the editors did not even know how to spell the word Buryat in English, so they used Italian spelling Buryati instead. They didn't know who Buryats are. And I strongly believe the reason behind the Russians, prominent Russian speakers, opposition leaders, blaming non-Russians for the war crimes is just the desire to shift the responsibility from Russians, including themselves, actually, to someone else, just to say it's not us, it's someone else who is to blame, basically. And yeah, so that's probably it.
You made your case.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.